We have our AGM on 26 March and then we are going for parliament. Also going for sort of parliament. It's like you find it.
Yeah, I forgot about the
You want to come on the car? So if you, so are you planning to come with this? Then one people don't. Return.
I started saying the same to me.
I don't have a society. I don't have a committee, I just get the play for the new stuff.
Where? Maybe it's like a little bit.
Yeah.
You just think that there's a block.
Yes, okay, I've seen it yesterday. Yeah. You know, to the like.
Yeah, okay, the other ones.
And then it's like, but it's really big, they can go into this more.
I don't know what to call this.
Well, let's see. States.
When the district is also made.
So like,
Oh, that's true. I should know that. I mean, it really meant to be. And maybe not a museum in Washington DC, they have a full exhibit on the interior of the house.
Yeah, and I think that because I'm happy with them, they have in love.
It's definitely the one who's
Is that I don't Yeah, so, sorry, the last from it. You know, they're looking for the. Leave I've got that in, you just need to remain in order. It's okay, that's really.
It's fun.
I was literally loving each other and worship.
I need to change my password.
And
And then we changed our password, and of course it was like, can't change the password to what it's already is. I'm like, I'm actually.
It was my name sheet in the last couple of activity. I actually came last. Yeah. I just. That totally was me, but I experienced it. Wow.
Shrubs the. I'm going downstairs.
This is.
I'll even heat up my pancakes. Yeah. So I love the concept of pasta and thinking this out. Like, it is not just because pasta can be filled with wine. I made a warm pizza this all, it's like the one I was making warm. It's only 4 minutes too. They usually start showing up like 4 minutes past. And I was trying to know this, but there's like a whole bunch of bowls going on right now in events. Anthropology has an event right now.
And you know, this is like.
I have to submit one tomorrow, another one you have to tomorrow, do 6. In my mind.
Yes, somebody want to do this first.
Need some please, it's really information at least because you need not worry about duplicate content because it's somebody, but for essays I think.
Just put
Very fine. For some reason, I'm very productive at night, staying. Me, when I came here, I did people. Just able to do night and.
know that they are getting. It's
Some people.
late in the morning. We are interesting to wake up late, there is sunshine now. We are home.
That's amazing.
But then we turn again like.
Yeah, that's true. There's usually people by now.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Let's see. Oh, we wanted some music for this last thing, no?
It's my first time creating this, so
Yeah, no worries. Let me. I think it's just like I need the to put the volume up here.
Yeah.
Or
yes. Someone should have.
maybe I can do it afterwards. Hello. How are you, Jonathan? By the way, guys, this is my successor.
Thank you.
So yeah, hopefully you guys will work together next year in the next few months.
Thank you for putting it there. Not the catalyst. Turn out computer. I know, I think this very being done for, okay, so I'm sure.
He's bringing sandwiches. Okay, I can hear some music. I don't know where it's coming from. Hello, how are you guys? Yeah, good. Very excited for today. I've seen the presentations, so they seem very, very exciting and insightful. How do I increase volume? Hello. How are you? Thank you so much for coming today. You can take a seat, whatever. Sorry? Scattered around. I've got one here. No. Let me-
Oh. Both happen.
Hey, you know what I forgot? The sign, the whiteboard. That's actually, well, I think what we'll do. Yes. No. There's not a sign here.
Use back of this.
Yeah. Or a marker or something.
Or.
I mean, we can always like just say like 5 minutes. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. No, I'm surprised we didn't get. Okay, so yeah, it's yeah, it's a lot. It's interesting. Yeah, I think I have some things that looks like it makes us fun to correct.
And I think in this assembly, there's several things that sort of
Yeah.
link with other consumers and
You have the other ones.
and we go on my university.
Oh, yeah. How's that?
Yeah.
I love that you can just tell.
Oh.
I'm saying that.
Yeah, they're so small.
They're like 5 minutes, they're like 60 tall.
It's interesting that so many, I've never seen
Yeah.
that.
I'm just a distribution.
Sometimes you don't. That's why I must be fighting inside. Yeah, when you're such a. Yeah, I changed mine.
There's meant to be, there's some people that sign up, but.
I didn't think so.
Over.
So guys, that's why I was saying, there's a city that nobody sees. That's the way you see it. Has to have my. You see it. So, no, that's my brother. Yeah, it was such a basic pizza. It was.
It's called the.
Yeah.
Not right. They will. It's not. I think this is the standard level rates for pizza is like the purple just show you them. No, we didn't. Like a jetpack was. I do hope we would. Yeah, another ridiculous crap. 2 years. And you know what? It's good. It's unhealthy for you.
I mean, it's a good cheese.
Yes. And that comes as an concern. Just for that. It's my home. That's something. Yeah. I'm gonna have a break up. I think that's the only greater time. It's not what's great.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our third assembly. And today the topic is food farming and land use. I think I'll just do a bit of housekeeping at the beginning. So the male toilet is on this floor. The female toilet is upstairs. I know it's a bit of a pain to have to go up the stairs because there's no elevator. What else? We got some food over here. So we've got some vegetarian pies, but also some vegan fudge. And the rest of the food, the hummus and the salads, come from the food story, actually. And it's all vegan. There's some juice, hot water for tea and coffee, and some water as well. Okay, we'll start with a quite stupid activity. If you want to scan the QR code and you just say, what's your go-to egg style? There's the vegan option as well, the tofu. Yeah, I think someone asked, like, is it tofu with eggs? Yeah, it should just take a minute. All right. I'm hoping everyone did that already. Now we're gonna move on to a Kahoot. So this, University, do you want to lead on this? Okay, no worries. So if you guys go on to, you scan the QR code and you put that game pin, and then we'll start. Let me see if I can play the music. And if I figure out the volume. Potatoes. Sorry. Okay, is that everyone? Anyone missing? No? Cool. Let's start. All right. Okay, I'll read the questions from now on. Nice. Let's move on to the next one. Ooh, Angus the bull. Which of the following practices can help reduce the carbon footprint of food production? Is it increasing the use of synthetic fertilizers, growing seasonal and local produce, expanding livestock farming, or increasing food transportation distances? Quick, quick, quick. Oh, nice. Well done, guys. Fairly straightforward. Ooh, KT. Great name. True or false? Frozen and processed foods have a low carbon footprint with an average of 1 kilogram of CO2 equivalents per kilogram. Is it true or is it false? False, correct. Well done, guys. Let's see who's winning now. Angus the bull takes the lead again. Which food items have a higher carbon footprint than 10 kilograms of CO2 equivalents per kilogram? Is it cheese? Is it coffee? Is it dark chocolate? Or all of the above? Nice guy. Who's winning? Ooh, Neat takes the lead now. What contributes most to the high carbon footprint of bovine meat? Is it feed production, land use, methane emissions, or processing and packaging? Ooh, very diverse results, but it was methane emissions indeed. Katie jumps back on the first place. Which food item emits less CO2 equivalents per kilogram? Is it vegetables? Is it nuts? Is it fruits? Or is it meat? Fruits. I have to say I was doubting between vegetables and fruit. Okay, ooh. On fire. True or false? Organic farming typically results in lower carbon emissions compared to conventional farming. True or false? Very straightforward as well. Which of the following foods has the lowest carbon footprint due to efficient land use and farming practices? Is it rice? Is it pork? Is it tofu? Or is it eggs? Ooh, very mixed results. But their answer was tofu, which is, yeah, it's quite ironic because there's like the myth of like, oh, but tofu is destroying like the Amazon forest because of the deforestation to plant soybeans and stuff. But what most of the people don't know is that those, like soybean plantations are actually planted to make the feed that feed the cattle. So it's not actually tofu or vegan products that are causing deforestation, but rather farming in itself. Okay, Yubashri is still on the first place. Which food has a lower carbon footprint than 1.5 kilograms of CO2 equivalents per kilogram? Lentils, tofu, potatoes, or nuts? People waiting until the last second. There we go. Lentils. That's very interesting, actually. Okie dokie. What is the carbon footprint of dark chocolate and why is it high? Is it, ooh, lots of numbers for me to read. You guys read. Oh, only one person got this right. Yeah, it was a tricky one. Okay, we're almost approaching the end. This is a bit biased. Okay. Carbon footprint of food waste is negligible and does not significantly contribute to overall emissions. Is this true or is this false? Nice. Well done, guys. How does deforestation for agricultural purposes impact the carbon footprint of food production? Reduces the carbon footprint by allowing more land for farming. Increases the carbon footprint by releasing stored carbon in trees in soil. No impact on the carbon footprint. Affects only the biodiversity of the land and not the carbon emissions. Which one is the correct answer? Oh, everyone got it right. Amazing. Let's move on to the next one. Which food has the lowest carbon footprint per kilogram? Is it rice? Is it alcohol? Is it farmed salmon? Or is it eggs? Remember it's per kilogram. Rice. Oh, very mixed answers as well. It's not easy. Well, no one chose alcohol. Fair enough. Which food has a higher carbon footprint due to water and energy needed for its production? Is it tomatoes? Is it potatoes? Is it almonds? Is it lettuce? Nice one. I was also a bit confused between tomatoes and almonds, but apparently it's almonds. Potato salad moved up one. You should not be playing. Which of the following helps in reduction of carbon emissions in food production? The use of synthetic fertilizers, deforestation for agricultural purposes, sustainable farming practices, or intensive monoculture farming. Nice. Well done, guys. That's it. That's the end. Who's on the third place? Katie on the third place. USC on the second place. Who made it to the first place? Jonathan. Congratulations. Runners up, potato salad and Angus the bone. Yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point. Well done, guys. Let's leave. Charlene, you wanna come? All right, we did that very quickly. So I'll give you guys 10 minutes to grab some food and some snacks, some tea. And yeah, and then we'll start getting ready for the presentations. So please get some food.
Yeah, good food.
Sorry.
And then just some fast food.
Yeah, we'll wait. Hi, Remy.
Jordan didn't have your charger, but he's letting you borrow his.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Remy, I was just saying that we've got food from the food story today.
Okay.
So yeah, a change from the vegan baker.
It's probably better than Pret a Manger still. Apparently they've got problems with hygiene. Pret a Manger.
Oh, really?
Like they got sued because like they cross-contaminated and almost killed someone because although it was more to do with allergen hygiene.
Oh, yeah, but still.
So yeah.
Really? I'm glad we didn't get food from this.
This group of
You got a volunteers.
No.
Oh, that's a good question, actually.
It is a good question.
You just kept there.
Jumpers that.
Yeah.
Yes. So basically, yeah, we got 1, 2, 3, 4 student sustainability advocates here that are helping organize the student climate assemblies. I gave them an old hoodie from 2018 from a project that the Students' Union run, which was called Evergreen, and it was actually very much about sustainability. So they were showing students how to mend their clothes, how to fix their bikes, how to cycle in Aberdeen, how to, I think they had like cooking workshops as well, like cooking sustainably and on a budget. What else did they do? A lot of like skill sharing as well, everything around sustainability, which was really cool. It was only a 2-year project. I think it was quite sad that it finished, but we've sort of taken on those activities. We've just like spread them a bit more. But yeah, is this your first assembly then? Nice, welcome. What is it that you're studying?
Environmental management.
Right, okay. Is it a master's?
Yeah.
Right. Is it with the School of Biological Sciences?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Right, okay, okay. How are you finding it so far?
I'm really liking it.
Yeah.
The first semester I think was my favourite by far because we had field trips, learned a lot about soil and sort of stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
I had no idea about it before I came in.
Yeah,
Computer science before.
okay. Quite different.
Yeah, pretty different. You know?
Yeah.
There's some programming they put in there. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's the only real.
Okay.
Yeah, super interesting,
Mhm.
and I'm really excited to learn that sector afterwards.
Yeah, who's your supervisor?
My supervisor right now is chief.
Right,
She's
Okay.
a recent
Okay.
a doctor.
okay,
She's very.
Okay.
I mean, haven't really had a chance to work with her at the start.
oh, okay, okay. Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, it must be great and Peter.
I do, yeah.
Paul Hartman maybe.
Paul Hallett, yeah.
He's the one. He's my favorite. He's
Yeah. See, I never managed to have any classes with him, but I heard that he was amazing.
Yeah.
One of my friends had him as a supervisor, actually.
Oh really?
Yeah. Yeah, Pete Smith as well. Pete Smith,
Oh,
and no, I think he focuses more on research maybe than teaching, but yeah, he's great. He's great as well. Yeah, no, I did biology, so
yeah.
yeah.
Biology.
To be fair, I studied biology in general, but I was mostly interested in plant ecology. So actually my research, well, my thesis was with Adam Price, who's now retired, and Matthias Kunert, who is like more in the modeling department of SBS, no? So it was actually about rice, like how to grow rice sustainably while making it more climate proof. Like, so climate change and like the sea levels and then the salinity affecting the paddy fields and yeah. I wish, no. I did it in the greenhouse here and it was a pain. Like it took me 4 attempts to actually grow the rice. It was horrible. I was like a month behind everyone else in my degree. So I had to ask for an extension, but at least I got the experience of working in the greenhouse, which was really. Yeah, exactly. Sorry? Yeah. Well, I mean, it grows in very warm countries. Yeah, right. But you can grow lots of things in a greenhouse. Like, for example, in Spain, you can grow tomatoes like outdoors, but here you'll be lucky if you make them grow in a greenhouse. Yeah, and higher temperatures as well, or heat. Yeah. Perfect. There we go. Hi, Martin. Cool. You wanna start, Shani? Do you want to use this or that?
I think I'm going to
Yeah. Okay. How about you?
Not too bad. End of a busy day. But
Oh.
getting some fun.
This.
No, that's not really not bad. Where you want me to
What's the point?
Yeah.
Take a seat.
Is there
any
online participant?
Sorry, what?
Is there any online participant?
No. There we go.
I think we should introduce or should I introduce? Shall I
I
give?
introduce the speakers, but you want to do like a general.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Okay. Sorry, I left out there.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah.
Although I get the student union is
It's the same group.
I get the student union has to be very.
So, hi everyone, good evening. Welcome all of you to the third climate assembly on food farming and land use. And we would like to, for the third climate assembly, I have this thing to say that either you are very passionate about sustainability or you are here for free snacks, either way you are at the right place. So today we are diving into a topic that affects every one of us every single day, food farming and land use. And these concepts are at the very heart of our existence as human beings. And even, at one IPCC special report on land actually stated that 1/3 of the global anthropogenic emissions, and out of these, 71% come from agriculture and land use. And this 34% is just 1/3 of the emissions are just from food farming and land use, as we see in the world today. And the remaining comes from agriculture and land use change, as I have just stated, and with the remaining 29% comes from supply chain activities, waste management, fuel production, and so on. Because let's face it, whether we are munching on vegan snacks or let's say or a microwave meal at 2 a.m., our food choices shape more than just our energy levels. They shape our planet, health, surroundings. Farming crucial to our lives since ancient times, as we can see, but also one of the biggest contributors to global warming, as we have seen in the Kahoot questions as well. There were how much methane emissions, rice farming and everything produces carbon emissions, which contributes to global warming, and is actually related to land degradation, water pollution, biodiversity loss. That is just through farming. Land is one of our most valuable but scarce resource, and the land use is responsible not just for food and shelter, but also for promoting biodiversity, carbon storage, carbon sinks. As we can see, like peatlands acts as a carbon sink in the world, and they also have carbon storage and sustain life. But also at the same time, they can degrade ecosystems and accelerate climate change. If there is a rampant deforestation in the world, or let's say if there is deforestation in the tropical rainforest, because they act as the largest carbon sink in the world. And as we are well aware of Amazon forests are not just famous for their anacondas, but they are also famous as I would say oxygen reservoirs for the planet. And so think about this, and I believe that the title for a third climate assembly is one of the critical issue to discuss today. And think about this, like what if our university in 2040 was a model of sustainability, and how can we discuss on these issues? And I really look forward to all of you discussing and engaging among ourselves on how we can come up with a sustainable plan, we can come up with sustainable farming practices and everything, and how we should evolve in an eco-friendly world in the coming years. So, but here's the thing: we are the generation that can change this narrative today through discussion, ideas, and engagement. We are not just imagining a better future, but we are designing it. So let's get started and welcome you all to the third climate assembly. Thank you.
That's the word. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so then we've got two very, very important speakers. It's going to be a very insightful two presentations. The first one, well, we're inviting Dr. Andrew Whitehouse to do the first one, and then we got Martin Carl to do the second one. So I'll just prepare the slides really quickly, but Andrew, if you want to come here, do you want to use this? Which microphone do you want to use?
I'll maybe use this. I can wave it around.
Yeah, if you just wait a second, I'll
I feel
do
like a
it.
rock star. So it's quite good.
Wrong.
And I'm told someone will wave frantically at me when I have 5 minutes to go. I don't know who I'm supposed to look at, or is it someone will wave?
I'll do like a quick introduction.
Okay,
Okay, so we're going to start with Dr. Andrew Whitehouse, who is a lecturer in environmental anthropology at the University of Aberdeen. Dr. Whitehouse is renowned for his extensive research in climate science, in particular nature conservation, landscape, and human-bird relations. With a wealth of knowledge in climate change impacts and mitigation strategies, Dr. Whitehouse has contributed significantly to our understanding of how human activities influence our planet. Please, let's welcome Dr. Andrew Whitehouse.
Thanks. I really feel like a rock star now. So yeah, so in this presentation, I'm covering big topics. I'm covering biodiversity, agriculture, and climate change, and how they might all fit together. As was said, I have quite a long-term interest in biodiversity conservation and issues around it, but also sometimes in the intersection of conservation and agriculture. I did doctoral research looking at relations between conservation and farming in the west of Scotland. So this is kind of a long-term kind of interest of mine. I'll start with what I think is the problem that I'm trying to talk about today. It's a very big problem. It's what they sometimes call a wicked problem, I suppose. One of these problems that is, seemingly almost impossible to deal with. So how do we reconcile biodiversity conservation and food production for growing human populations in a time of rapid climate change? That is, I would say, a little bit the situation we're facing. And it's a difficult problem. We might first of all, we've got different interests there. We might first of all say, well, are they really in conflict with each other, or could we perhaps find ways for them to work together? Sometimes they might be in conflict with each other. As I say, when I did my doctoral research a long time ago, I was looking really at conflicts between conservation and agriculture in some ways, where conservationists were trying to protect species that were damaging agricultural interests and food production. I'll be looking in this talk at two ideas that have been put forward to try to address this kind of problem. I'll be thinking about some of the sort of pros and cons of them. We might also want to think about, okay, we're talking a bit here about humans, human food, and so on. But how do we bring in maybe other creatures? What would they say in response to this problem? What would be their ideas, and how can we understand them? Quite big topics. I'll try and start with maybe relatively close to home, but I thought it might be useful to think about. I mean, this is not a new problem, I would say. In some ways, it's probably a sort of problem of human history, I suppose. But I can think a bit about, how the modern situation of how we deal with this has come into being in Britain, for example. If you look at the situation after the Second World War in Britain, the Second World War meant that there was created a kind of particularly acute concern over the reliance that there was in Britain on food and sometimes other resources, forestry, that sort of thing, coming from other countries, because obviously it became much more difficult to bring things in during that period. So it was resolved after the Second World War that something had to be done about this to enable Britain to be more self-reliant on these things, to produce more of this kind of stuff. But also at the same time, there was an increasing concern with nature and with conservation. Often, this is around the time where the idea that nature could I suppose, become quite threatened by kind of industrial activity and so on, but also that it became quite important as a kind of the idea of natural heritage kind of came about in Britain at that time. So there were a lot of things that they needed to reconcile. And the systems that they came up with, I suppose, are the sort of groundings of much of how we organize land use in Britain now, which involves a kind of zoning of land and for different interests. So you could have bits for farming, for industry, for urban areas, and for nature. So you could have these kind of different bits of land that would be used for different kinds of things. So a sort of zoning system. And also you had things like economic incentives, like subsidies and so on, that would promote production and that kind of thing. You also had technological changes coming in, mechanization in farming. You also had things like the growth of use of fertilizers, pesticides, and so on. So quite a period of big change, but it was kind of underpinned by this kind of zoning approach. Which extended to nature conservation. You had things like much more formal nature conservation in things like national parks, which were introduced around this time, nature reserves, things like designated areas like sites of special scientific interest. What happened in response to that was you had, in agriculture, you did have increasing production in many ways, but you also had, despite the emergence of conservation and much more formal conservation and protection, in general, you had a significant loss of nature and biodiversity. And sometimes that even happened within things like national parks and so on, that were supposed to be sort of protected areas. So I do that as a kind of illustration of what I would regard as the way that conservation tends to operate, and the way that how it operates within larger ideas about land use and so on. We can think, I suppose, of conservation as a kind of system. And I think if we look at it as a system, and if we say it's a system that is intended, that we think should be intended to conserve and possibly enhance biodiversity, I would have to question whether it's really been successful. Conservation is something, a formal conservation, and kind of way that we have it now and that I've just outlined, has probably been around. I mean, it's been around in Britain since the end of the Second World War. It has a little bit of a longer history elsewhere, maybe going back to the 19th century, but it's something that really emerged in response to industrial society and so on. And the kinds of problems that came about through that. But it's often come to seem as though conservation is kind of a salvage operation. We are losing all sorts of biodiversity, species going extinct, habitats being destroyed, very familiar kinds of subjects. Conservation is very good in some ways at protecting the remnants, both in terms of endangered species and also remnants of kind of natural habitats, so on. And it's been relatively successful at that, but is it overall successful? What we find quite often is that, you know, nature is often increasingly restricted to protected areas. And it does okay in those, but often those areas become fragmented and so on. And you might ask the question, well, does this, if we sort of say, okay, we're protecting nature over in this little bit over here, but everywhere else we can do what we like. We can intensify farming to whatever level we need. We can have more industry, more urban areas, and do what we like, so long as we've got this little bit over here where we're keeping a little bit of nature. So you could argue perhaps that conservation has actually enabled further exploitation rather than salvaging, rather than actually kind of enhancing biodiversity overall. So you have maybe a problem of zoning, you know, this idea that you keep your little bit of nature over here, and everywhere else you can is open for business. I think there's a kind of agriculturalist logic to this, maybe. It's almost like, you know, you have farming and you have, you know, your field over here for nature, you have your fields for industry, forestry, for urban areas. And, you know, that's the way it's done. It's kind of different fields with boundaries around them, and you keep your different interests in different places. So a question might be, is the way to solve or reconcile these issues to properly protect biodiversity, to extend this kind of system, or do we need some new thinking? Do we need new ideas? And I'll talk about two approaches that I think, or at least I think both of these approaches would be in some ways critical as I'm being of conventional approaches to conservation and land use. But they have different kinds of solutions. The first is perhaps one you might have heard of, which is called often called half Earth, which is a term that was coined by the biologist Edward O. Wilson. And I think it's interesting that this is coming from a little bit more from biological science than the second approach I'll talk about. And it's basically saying half the Earth should be protected for nature. We need to set aside half of certainly the land surface of the Earth for nature. And in that respect, it can be seen as a sort of very substantial extension of current conservation systems, protecting more and more areas, connecting them up better, and so on. I think this approach claims to be very ecocentric rather than anthropocentric. It is primarily trying to say, okay, what does the rest of life on Earth need? We won't worry about, what it can do for us so much as what its own interests for their own sake, to protect all the rest of life on Earth. What do we need to do? How much land do we need to protect and conserve all biodiversity? And they sort of come up with saying, we need at least half. We need to sort of set that aside and basically not do very much with it. Not necessarily to sort of get rid of everybody who lives there, and this will be distributed around the world. But yeah, it's half the kind of land surface, quite a bit of the oceans as well. And it does raise the question of what happens in the other half. What happens to nature there? What happens to other species? Is that other half going to be for obviously humans to live and food production for those humans? But do we have to, if we're leaving aside the rest, do we just have to farm very intensively, for example, in all those areas to produce enough food for humanity? So there are certain questions with it, and there are pros and cons. It would obviously increase the capacity of conservation, the area that it covers. It could create more, it would certainly aim to create much more, untouched places for nature. There's a kind of, in some ways, I think it's interesting that it comes from biology, and it also comes from North America, where the kind of wilderness idea is very kind of entrenched in conservation. So it is emphasizing, natural systems, kind of rewilding type approaches, that kind of thing. Maybe that's a good thing. I'm not saying that we don't need places like that. An interesting thing is that it claims to be ecocentric. It claims to be, in a way, standing in for other creatures and saying, okay, and giving them kind of rights in a way, and saying, okay, what do they need? We have to take account of that. Does it bring other creatures into politics? Does it really do what they want? You could argue as well, and the next approach I'll look at does argue this, that it's, in a way, it still is a version of the conventional conservation system of protected areas, zones, and things like that. It's not really trying to change anything in human society. It's just saying you need to keep humans out of a lot of the world. It also tends to flatten humanity and say, well, okay, humanity in general is the problem. We need to keep humans out of a lot of the world as much as possible. So, is it using the cause of the problem to solve the problem? And also what happens to people in these protected areas? Do we leave them there? How do we restrict what they do? How do we control things? Who does the controlling? All these kinds of political problems that come with conventional conservation, I suppose. The second approach I'll talk about is one called convivial conservation. I think it may be less well known than the half Earth approach. This is one that comes a little bit more from social science, particularly from Brandbuscher and Robert Fletcher, from European social scientists. It's probably not coincidence that it comes from that, or at least it strikes me as being a bit more in line with European conservationist approaches. But it's also a little bit, it is quite radical in certain ways. It does offer a focus on how people live together well with their environment. How can we live better in a more convivial way with other creatures, with ecosystems? So it has this very holistic aim, and to try and sort of promote high biodiversity everywhere and not just in the half that's protected. It has a very strong political emphasis and an emphasis on changing political economy away from capitalism. It identifies capitalism and the emphasis on continual growth as the root cause of the problems that we encounter, both in human society and in terms of human environment relations. It advocates for what they call a conservation basic income, which is a sort of version of universal basic income that is being given unconditionally to people in areas of high biodiversity to support nature in those areas. It is quite anthropocentric. I mean, most of the stuff that you read about this, it will be talking about people and politics and economy and that sort of stuff. But it does have an emphasis on local ways of living and supporting those in ways that are not going to destroy or undermine the environment. And potentially it allows for much more of an emphasis on how food production and environmental being can work well together, so that you have both biodiversity and food production and human well-being in the same place working alongside each other. That's the aim, and it's a quite utopian kind of thing, but maybe you do that. So I think it does try to address the specifics of anthropogenic environmental problems. It does say, okay, what is the cause here? And it's not demonizing humanity as a whole. It's kind of saying there are certain problematic ways of doing things that we need to change. And it addresses biodiversity and human life everywhere together. And it aims to be more politically equitable. It is criticized for being too anthropocentric. There is an idea that, in a way, in terms of how it looks at, we might look at politics, people will say, okay, it's good that they're looking at human inequalities and how and often the sort of colonialism of conservation and the problems, the real problems of capitalism, but what about other creatures? Is it really concerned with that? And so, the question, yeah.
Well, I'm thinking as well, because there's a point saying that where the hamper system claims to not be anthropocentric, but actually, in a way, it is actually quite anthropocentric because we have the earth for humans. That and have the earth for all the rest of life on Earth. That's still not a lot of things. But of course, in terms of life on Earth, there's of course a matter of ecosystems.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's a good point, and I agree actually. So does it give enough space for both nature and food production? In a way, if you have high biodiversity and food production, will you be able to produce enough food for growing populations and so on? Is it feasible, and is it feasible to change culture, to change political economy in the sort of relatively short period of time that we might need to deal with these kinds of problems? So, and there is behind all this the challenge of climate change. we might ask the question, and this is a series of questions, and I don't entirely know the answers to these questions myself, but there may be interesting things to discuss. How can these approaches help mitigate climate change? Can they do something to sequester carbon, that sort of thing, or reduce carbon emissions? How can they support adaptation to climate change, particularly in changing climates in which species are going to be moving around or trying to move around and so on? Can they do these things in equitable ways? Do they do enough to support the loss of biodiversity? And not just, for example, are they doing enough to support species that don't live easily with humans and so on? Will they still enable humanity to be fed? Can they realistically do all this in time? Time is short. And so what is going to be the most effective kind of system within the kinds of timeframes that we might think we need to do something? And I'll leave you with those questions. There's some references there for things you can read if you are interested in learning more about this. I hope I was on time, I'm sure. All right, thank you.
Thing for the Q&A.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, thank you. No, I'm having the same issue as before. Wait, is it presenting Teams? Hello? How can I make like the presentation mode appear on this screen and not this one? Any technology people? I can't remember how we did it last time. Yeah. I think I know actually. There was something with the screens. Duplicate. Let's see if that works. Yeah. There we go. Amazing. Cool. Our second speaker today is Martin Carl. Martin is a Sustainable Food Coordinator at CFINE, which is a Community Food Initiatives Northeast. Through his role, Martin is currently coordinating Granite City Good Food, which is Aberdeen City Sustainable Food Places Partnership. Martin has played a key role in driving initiatives that reduce food waste, support local food production, and educate communities about the importance of sustainable practices, fostering long-term resilience within our communities. Please welcome Martin Carl. Do you want to use this?
I'll just use that one, that's right.
No, it's
Done the job on my first slide for me. Thank you for that. I know that's really great. Yeah, my name's Martin. I work for CFINE. We're a third sector organisation in the northeast of Scotland. We're based over just by Union Square. And our job as an organisation is to tackle food poverty, and we take a whole systems approach in doing that. We use the food system to create positive change and really think about how we can provide equitable food access to everyone in our communities. When it comes to thinking about this from a climate perspective, that seems really odd, but I'll get to Granite City Good Food and my project in particular in a moment. I'm going to use my presentation to ask myself some questions in a really self-absorbing way, I think. I'm going to try and cover the questions around what is the food system, who is involved in the food system, why is the current food system unsustainable, why is food even an issue anyway? And I think we've covered some of that already in many ways. Where do I come in? What does my role do, and why do I play a role in sort of coordinating that in Aberdeen, certainly in the city? And then where do you come in as people who can make the change as well, rather optimistically? So I hope we're going to be ending on a positive note as well. So let's start by looking at what the food system is. I think that's a great question, and it's maybe better to ask what the food system isn't in many ways. The World Food Programme, the UN, describes the food system as networks needed to produce and transform food and ensure it reaches consumers. Fundamentally, food systems are broad. They recognise and comprise of any actor, process, or stage in the production of food until and beyond the point it reaches your plate. This includes, I've got a list here, agriculture, processing, transportation, retail, or the point at which you access food, if that's not retail itself. But also many more. Procurers, caterers, they have a role, whether it's public sector or private sector. Governments and NGOs alike play a really significant role in setting the agenda. And communities and individuals can also play a role in that as well. The one thing that I reject about the World Food Programme's definition there is the use of the word consumers. I think we have more of a role in the food system and in transforming the food system than being passive consumers. And I sort of more subscribe to the definition of food citizenship, which has been popularised by the Food Ethics Council, which is a national organisation across the UK. The idea that we are equal participants in the food system, and instead of merely being consumers, we have agency and we can drive forward on some of that positive change. Hence, in the breadth of the food system, what we're looking at is the industrial aspects of food production and agriculture and so on. But we also have an influence. What we grow, what we surround ourselves with, and where we live all influence how we experience food and engage with the system. Some of that within our control, some of it for some of the reasons and for some of the actors that I've gone into just in that description there, we can't control. For example, and I'm going to go to a sort of really odd example first. We don't participate in the decision to be taught or not how to cook in schools, for example, through home economics. But we do have the choice in our own lives as we move beyond that and teaching ourselves how to cook and developing our food skills in a way which interests us, and food skills in the widest possible sense as well, not just what do I do with a pan and a hob and an oven. We don't have, I'm just going to turn my notes. We don't have total influence, as I say, over the infrastructure which surrounds us in terms of food access. And from CFINE's point of view, we really understand that, for example, in rural communities, we don't have as ready access to food as we do in urban communities. And some of the work that we do, particularly in Aberdeenshire and right across the north of Scotland and Highlands, Orkney and Shetland as well, really demonstrates some of that. But we do, as food citizens, have the ability to shape demands, mould the food system, and also how our diets look in spite of where and how we might live. Sounds great, right? I've filled us with optimism to start off, I think. The food system is a live concept, but surely we have a significant role to play in that. The bad news, unfortunately, is the current food system is unsustainable. Sorry to be the bearer of that bad news. Our food system is the leading cause of biodiversity loss, and we need to change the way that we act and think about food, or else the problem can only get worse, and actually the way that it worsens can only accelerate the damage that it's doing. We've had some IPCC statistics already this evening, but the estimation of between 21 and 37% of global greenhouse gases originating within the food system is really indicative of the scale to which the food system contributes to the problem around climate change and biodiversity loss in particular. So yeah, it exists at all levels as well, just to say as well, and regenerative farming being part of the solution right through to community-based agriculture. We've got a really great community growing movement in the city, and we've got some examples here on campus and around the communities nearby as well. So yeah, the solution exists at all levels as well. Our food system is inequitable. It doesn't work for everyone. And food insecurity and food poverty are problematic issues that scale locally and globally. I know the local perspective on this. Food insecurity is rising. The cost of living is a real challenge. CFINE's role in responding to that has only become greater and greater over the past few years, and taking an approach there which understands the crossover between those first two issues in terms of the environmental aspect and the food-based aspect in terms of access. Is something that we really, focus on as an organisation as well. We produce food, but that food doesn't cater for everyone, unfortunately. And at the same time as all of these problems, we waste food too readily. We have a real waste culture, not just in terms of things like fast fashion and so on, but also in terms of our food system. The circular economy is really obvious and very apparent in some aspects of life, and it's becoming more and more apparent in some aspects of life. But the circular economy of food, and particularly in terms of the reduction of food waste, doesn't always feel like it's recognised and doesn't always feel like it's really prominent as well. And a final point as well, our food behaviours, don't help the system at all times either. Anyway, and I speak in really general terms on this. Factors that indicate and influence our food system include a tendency towards convenience that is shaping the sort of diets that we have, and also foods which are processed or high in fat, salt and sugar. I know there's a lot of work going on, for example, at government level through consultation and policy change to sort of reduce the promotion of those items, but they still exist. And again, whether that's something we can control or if it's infrastructure that we can't is a really valid question. And there seems to be, particularly at supermarket level, and again, this is potentially out with our control, an obsession with perfection. We've marketed fruit and veg as something that needs to be so perfect for us to consume, and anything that doesn't look perfect is described as wonky or sold as wonky, when actually fruit and veg by its very nature, and by the very fact it is a natural product, is imperfect and comes in all shapes, sizes, qualities, and so on, and it's all got a use as well. And I'll come on to sort of the wider impact of that in a bit as well. So what role do I play? I've got two logos here, I've got Seafine and I've got Granite City Good Food. I work for Seafine as Sustainable Food Coordinator. My job as Sustainable Food Coordinator is to coordinate the project, which is Granite City Good Food. So let's start with the wider sense here in terms of the role that I play at Seafine. Just a bit further information about us. Seafine is a social enterprise based in Aberdeen City, operated by around 40 odd staff, between 40 and 50 staff, and around 350 volunteers per year. We work with households across the northeast of Scotland, as I say, to improve health and wellbeing through food access and other services. The other services being really important as well in order for us to tackle food poverty and create positive impact on our community. Wraparound service is really important, but I won't go into too much detail on that just now. And we also support other organisations and groups working on issues around food poverty through our Fair Share operation. We operate Fair Share Grampian, Highlands and Islands. And so we have a role in distributing food surplus and tackling food waste through our distribution to those networks as well. This is a sort of organisation organogram. I love a diagram, but it shows you the way that we take a whole systems approach, and very much, in terms of what we do. From a wellbeing perspective, we have a really great team that work on community growing and supporting, environmental adaptation and change at that level through increasing food growing opportunities and through working with communities to empower and enable further action. We also have a community kitchen that offers, support from that food skills perspective as well. We've got all of our food access services, our emergency food, our community food outlets, which are community-based fruit and veg providers, community food pantries, which tackles food waste in some way through providing access to affordable food and stretching household budgets, and of course through our Fair Share. And then on the bottom half of that diagram, some of those essential wraparound services, budgeting and financial support, training and volunteering opportunities as well. To narrow in, I suppose, on the one that's most relevant to food waste is Fair Share. So we operate Fair Share Grampian, Highlands and Islands, which we are the regional centre of the national Fair Share organisation. We redistribute surplus to some 300 plus community food members. That's community organisations across 8 local authority areas, Aberdeenshire, right up to Shetland and right across to the Western Isles. And we really do our best to empower community activity through that food, tackling food waste, but also bringing communities together around food and the social role that that performs. We take perfectly reusable surplus food from the food system and prevent it becoming waste by supporting the distribution of this food with communities. Perfectly reusable surplus, I put that word in for a reason. The types of food we get are greatly varying, and I know that Arsana, has some involvement as a community food member receiving some of that food. Some of the food could be produce raw ingredients, things that have been described as imperfect by the food system, and hence the producer sat with a glut and an extra, share of food that a supermarket or a food producer, a food seller won't take. And so it gets distributed through our network in order that that does not become wasted and that we do not see the, the climate harm that that can do. But it could also be, for example, products that have been tested by manufacturers and tested by producers that haven't particularly worked. A couple of years ago through our network, we had pre-made blueberry and sausage pizzas, if you can believe that that's a thing, but it was, and apparently they were nicer than they sounded. But all of that to say, it could be food produce that has come through our network that's been tested and not worked. And that is still a really harmful aspect of our food system as well. As I say, we've got around 300 community food members that receive food from us, and we're always, supporting other groups to come on board and receive some of that food. It's all about tackling food waste whilst promoting access to healthy and affordable food as well. The role that I play in particular through Grantley City Good Food, the project. Grantley City Good Food is the Sustainable Food Places Partnership for Aberdeen City. We have been a food partnership since 2018. I have been its coordinator since 2020. And we're doing some really great work, if I don't say so myself. We are collaborating, connecting and instigating action around sustainable food at an organisational level by working with organisations who are in the position locally to make that change. But we're also supporting communities around sustainable foods and enabling sustainable food behaviour and some of that change as well. Today's been a really, really busy day showcasing some of this because we take a whole systems approach that looks a bit like this. We are one of 114 food partnerships in the UK that are doing some really great work around taking a whole systems approach. And some of our partners include, Aberdeen City Council, NHS Grampian, the Rowett Institute at the University of Aberdeen, as well as community partners, Tilly Grove Community Flat, and multiple others as well. We have this 6 key area system, which we describe as a systems approach, a whole systems approach in many ways, which includes taking a strategic and collaborative approach to good food governance and action, building public awareness, active food citizenship, and the good food movement, tackling food poverty and diet-related ill health. A lot of that you'll have heard about so far. Creating a vibrant and prosperous and diverse sustainable food economy, transforming catering and procurement, and revitalising local and sustainable food supply chains. And then importantly, everything is underpinned by the climate and nature emergency through sustainable food and farming and an end to food waste. We work with organisations and communities across the city to drive this forward. Sustainable Food Places is underpinned by an award system which is given out to places. It was originally Sustainable Food Cities, but there is a real emphasis on that sort of rural and more regional piece as well. So Sustainable Food Places partnerships comprise cities, regions, rural areas, and all sorts of different places as well as defined by them. We were the first in Scotland to receive our bronze award, a bronze, silver, gold system. We were the first to receive our bronze in 2018. First to achieve our silver in 2022, and we've been progress and work over the past 3 years to become the first in Scotland to become a Sustainable Food Places Gold city in Aberdeen. And today we had our inspection visit, so I've been incredibly busy. I'm dressed a lot smarter than I normally am, where we were being assessed for our Gold Award, meeting communities, partners, and sharing as much information as possible, including information about the great work that House is doing on this as well. So yeah, there's a lot there that we can do, and we've been working at it for a long time, connecting and really making sure that partners are working together and that we are working with communities on that. And that includes through the education system, it includes through community work and development work as well. So I'm not sure how I'm doing for time. Am I good for time? Cool. To come back to the positive aspects, and I think I've gone through quite a lot of varied aspects in this presentation so far that I've sort of jotted around the topic in some way. Use your power as a food citizen. If I leave you with anything, against that. Your food habits can make a difference. Such things include fairer sustainable trade, less and better meat and fish, and really understanding that variety is the spice of life. That varying up our diets and making sure that we are eating healthily and sustainably is really important, but we don't have to have meat and 2 veg on every plate. And the quality of that food on your plate can really be quite important there as well. In terms of fair and sustainable trade, we in the city have the Aberdeen Fair and Sustainable Trade Group, which we work quite a lot with, and I know that House is part of that group as well. And over the past 20 years, that group has been promoting fair trade, but also ethical trade within the city as well. So if ever you're looking for information in terms of how to increase the intake of fair and sustainably traded items in your diet, then that is surely the place to look. In terms of less and better meat and fish, Granite City Good Food supported Sustains Food for the Planet campaign locally. And really trying to encourage organisations and individuals alike to be thinking about intake of meat with the narrative that less and better is always the way to go. I.e., don't buy cheaply, don't buy low quality meat, get to know your butcher, get to know your fishmonger, and really support local on that as well. They have the best quality produce and typically are the ones that can really share some expertise with you in terms of the best quality that you can get from those items and the best cuts that you can get as well, to make sure that you're thinking, ahead of the curve there as well. And take a leading role through your own food behaviours and let those behaviours shine as well. So let them, distribute themselves amongst your own life, but also share them with friends, family. Be that person that's really annoying and saying to people, what are you doing? And tackle food waste at your own scale and support others to do the same. I'm always known in the office for, talking about the need for reducing domestic food waste and reducing food waste within the office as well. And one of the questions I often ask is, are we sure we need to waste that as well? Particularly when it comes to things that are perfectly reusable or that you can get more. Granite City Good Food has, over the past year, led in developing zero waste cooking guides, zero waste resources to promote unexpected uses for some really typical or typically wasted foods as well. So again, there's some resource support there that you can access to really think about how to do that. Use your food skills, whether that's growing, cooking, or otherwise for good. Participate in your local community gardens, get involved in some of the community agriculture that we've got in the city. We've got a really vibrant network of community gardens and community growing spaces. Again, a really vibrant network of people that are food champions in our city that are teaching others how to cook. We've got around 50 voluntary representatives and community organisations across the city who are trained in competence cooking, teaching others and enabling others with the skills on how to cook and how to do that smartly so that you are reducing food waste and so that you're not contributing to the problem that we've got in terms of food and sustainability. And don't be passive to the food system. You're here tonight. That is surely the first step. I'm happy to take any questions. I can stick around for the Q&A and happy to take any questions. My details are also on the screen. If ever you want to get in touch with any questions or any thoughts, do let me know. And we also do have a website that I didn't put on the slide, granitecitygoodfood.org. Most of the resources I've talked about will be on that website. And if not, get in touch with me and I can put you in touch with the people that have those. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martin, and Andrew as well. Thank you so much for two super insightful presentations. If it's okay with the both of you, I can circulate your email addresses later for the students to get in touch if they got further questions. But we're gonna open the floor now for questions. So I'm just gonna remind everyone that if you can turn on your microphone when you want to speak. Yeah. Okay. Any questions? Remy.
Yeah, that works. That doesn't work. Just that the light doesn't turn on, but
it works.
Yeah, I'd like to ask: are there community gardens near student accommodation? And what student accommodation would you say is the best for access to community gardens?
Who's that question directed to? Martin?
I suspect it's myself. Is that microphone working? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Is that working? Really interesting question. I've never mapped out community gardens against student accommodation before, but there are lots, for example, on campus. There's a secret garden society just over on side Bootchart. In Tillage Road, there's certain worms just behind the pharmacy on Heaton Road, and that's not really near student accommodation as such, but there's quite a lot of students that will stay in that Tillage Road area as well. Down in Seaton, we've got the Snug Garden, which is by Bayview Court, one of the high rises. So again, that's quite near campus. And there are a couple of others that I'm thinking of that have just escaped my mind. One of the projects that's in the pipeline at the moment, and that I was hearing more about today, is a project on the Mount Lily roundabouts that will eventually be able to be accessed by the public subway that goes underneath the Mount Lily roundabout there. And there's going to be a development of a sort of community orchard in that area. It's not a community garden at this point, but it will, in future months and years, be really prosperous for students to be able to access. And my understanding is that the orchard will produce food that is, freely accessible to those that are using that subway. So yeah, there's lots of community growing spaces. There is a map of all community growing spaces in the city that can be accessed via our Granite City Good Food website. And so check that out. And if you're in a student accommodation or if you're looking for information on that, then that would be the place that I would tell you to turn to.
Shalene?
Hello, yeah. So thank you speakers for the wonderful presentation and really enjoyed the same. My question is to you, Professor, that you were talking about half earth, there was also discussion about convivial farming and convivial agriculture, which I didn't know before this presentation that there are such words which exist. But we talk about organic farming, we talk about half earth, but is it really sustainable for the people or for the population on the planet? Like, organic farming is not which can feed billions of population, but we need to somehow shift to organic farming to reduce emissions and everything. So what is your take on this? Thank you.
Is it working at all?
Oh, yes. Yeah, good questions. To some extent, it's the $6 million question. And I think neither of these approaches are really clear enough about whether we can produce that. And in some ways, I don't think anybody knows the answer, because we are going to have more people. Potentially, even if we are able to, people change practices to be, more sustainable eating, less food waste, maybe less animal products, things like that. Globally, that would be good, but even then, you're probably going to see, a need for more food, really. So it's and also with climate change. We potentially will have more and more pressure on food systems as well. So there are a lot of big problems there. And you could say, okay, I suppose the half earth approach, the implication is, half of the earth is kind of not used at all for farming and it's protected and it's for nature. The other half, if you're going to feed everybody, presumably has to be quite more intensively farmed. Possibly there are implications on the environment for that. I would always say this is true of conservation as it exists at the moment. It's not just what happens within the protected areas; it's the effects that has elsewhere. If you have, as I said, you have this kind of zoning system, and if you're saying, okay, we're protecting things here. We can do what we want everywhere else and, exploit it as much as we can. But then maybe the problems created in that pollution, climate effects and so on are going to have knock-on effects in the areas you protect anyway. So I don't necessarily have an answer to that question. I don't think anyone has a real answer to that question. I think the half earth people also say they start talking a lot about human population and reducing that, which of course, everything would be a lot easier if there were a few billion less people in the world, but how we would get to that in a way that is not catastrophically terrible in a relatively short period of time is, I don't know the answer to that, and I've not heard a good answer to that. So it's a very difficult problem. But yeah, and it comes to that question of dealing with climate change as well, and what approach is going to be most adaptable to a changing climate and enabling food production in a way that also facilitates biodiversity and encourages biodiversity. So it's a good question. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. I've actually well, two questions. I'll start with the one I think is most on my mind right now. So I think kind of going off the previous question, I was wondering, are you aware of like any maybe like advanced technologies that are being introduced to try and deal with these issues with the growing population plus climate change, maybe to like modify crops or environments that have been incorporating that? And then also, or like other strategies, maybe like polycultures, where you're trying to really put a diverse environment back, but at a scale, don't know the question too much. But I just want to be aware of any instances where kind of techniques have been brought in to try and deal with these things.
I mean, in some ways, in terms of technology, I mean, lots of people all around the world have for millennia tried to find good ways to live with our environment and the problems and limitations that causes, and often have developed good technologies that do that. Often the problem can be, people come in and, often from outside and say, we want you to do things differently and be more productive and that sort of thing. And you have the kind of like the green revolution kind of, possibly would be, higher inputs, modified strains of crops and so on to produce more. But that, it doesn't always work, and it also has knock-on effects, and it's not necessarily also very good at, it creates problems in terms of, biodiversity and so on, because pesticide inputs and all that kind of stuff. So, I think in some ways it's good to look at older systems that people often developed over long periods of time to see if they can more easily reconcile these different things. And they may not produce more food necessarily, but they may deal more easily with the constraints of that environment in particular places. So it's also, it's as much as anything about using kind of local people's knowledge that in some cases have been lost because these things, new systems have come in and taken over as ways potentially of dealing with the various kinds of environmental constraints and so on. But again, it's still quite difficult because you do want to produce more food. There was a second part.
No, that was
okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
No, I mean, my second question was, towards Andrew. Sorry, no, Martin. I was wondering, I'm from Edinburgh, and I've seen a lot of push there in like refilleries. This is coming up with it. People come in with like tubs and try and choose like the actual plastic that contains all the resources that we need. So I'm just wondering, I don't know, I've not seen any around academia, I'm not aware of any other, some here, and is that coming a thing?
Yeah, there are a couple, depending on which area you live in. There's one in the city centre, for example, called Nature's Larder. There is another one in the city centre called Rephilosophy. And then in the Rosemount area, there is a shop called Rosemount Market, which has a refillery aspect to that as well. There are those few shops are a good example of some of the more sort of locally produced shops as well as offering refills approaches. They often also couple that with a real emphasis on local brands within a certain mileage of the store, or as well as that, looking at, for example, Scottish brands as well for different products. So there are a few, and those three are the first three that come to my mind.
I'll add something to that. We've got our own on campus. So come and visit the Zero Waste shop on Mondays from 12:30 to 3:30 at the Students' Union building. But I'll give you more details later. Any more questions, guys? No? Okay, well, if you all join me again in a round of applause for our amazing speakers today. Thank you very much. I think we're gonna take a 10-minute break now, so we come back at 7:05. You can go to the bathroom, you can get some food, you can chat a bit more to the speakers if they can stay. And yeah, I will see you guys at 7:05. Thank you.
I've still put in the form of and we have the condensed kind of really positive in general. But what's within the application of the
idea to
yeah, eventually. Specific time on the it's open to the table to get more
you capture their emotions the whole time. Where although we did say it's really quick, we're not going to I was wondering where on part where you're sharing it's more about
you got assignments though. Okay.
Coordinating strategy to do performance now.
People have to take off the road. They have to actually make their food to the light.
Particularly with economic development and the things and so on. So there's lots of being sharing business and operating some good benefits to this. Yeah, it's amazing. Good.
Charlie, actually, it's been.
And then those are the ones for summer during for a week. About
Oh, right, yeah, yeah, no, I mean, I got this wrong, but what it said that only comes with one, which I don't think is true at all. So, yeah, I probably should come to this one, but this one was definitely the areas that that's with most, like, in my degree as well. This strange in like typically matters now. So I was gonna have to done.
I do already want to take the
Yeah, no, I wish we could manage it as well then. I'm sure it'd be very interesting.
Yeah.
That's gonna be something that we can do. Yeah. It's definitely not an endless fire. I can see where the points are. Yeah. How did you get into those ones?
It's not just kind of like on starting the That's
It's
why.
like, we did great work and it's amazing to, sorry. Yeah, I'll tell you how that's, yeah, no, it's great to others that they really find it when you want to do business, you know, especially with your like. That's such a crazy area. From the outside in, I don't know much about it. I'm going to say this. I'm really happy to meet someone who's good at it. I think it's probably my weakest area. Oh, God, it's long. No, like, I'm okay, but it's not my strong, my best. Oh, yeah, I got the point. Yeah, but yeah, I'm definitely trying to use vegetables like environment best. That's why I asked that question. I that's my goals. Yeah. Yeah, sure. I'm interested to see how that is sustainable, because, you know, right now, for example, like the US Trump's in, and it's like VTOI, I recommend taking a lot of these sustainability agendas as well. And I don't know if that's going to carry us to the West, you know, for the East. In terms of, yeah, so the rest of the world. I'm interested to see if the company policy adjusts now what's happening for Facebook ads, but I don't know if it's, hopefully not. And we still, I'm not being posted. Something that's difficult about this, but I'm just about trying to explain that. And I really passionate your truth. Yeah, I could find it as best I could. Are you from India as well? Yeah, born in the south of the UK, lots of I live in yeah, my family also really used to, like, they go to this facility, like, zero, so zero class the next thing, taking so everything they get from there. And it's quite expensive, but I'm really interested in seeing, like, how that, if that trend continues, and it's not just something which, like, the people who don't have most money. Yeah, well, I'm sure you can. What they do, they are refurbishing school campus, people have everybody. Amazing. I know that was going on. Like, you know, quite I want to say it was the extreme situation of these things. Very different. So yeah, it's like what was happening problem. The last thing we were doing the live stores on Facebook. They don't use factory to take yeah. Yeah, I mean, truly on because I've done for the first time. Yeah, and you just imagine, you know, that it's always walls there. That's how you should do it. I don't have like all that stuff, so literally got everything like, oh, I can still drop that. How did you get interested in sustainability?
You felt like that it's a good reason.
You know, it's just like.
The approach to it's a lot less formal.
But started to get something really manufacturing,
much less.
and then just got control of the. Yeah.
Well, they've got wood for.
It's like
That are owned by the government. And there are 28 states. Then there might be some states which are there one way, but they don't allow fleet of other states to come in here. And those states yeah, people will come on and you know, again, there's open states and scratch. Supply being responsible. When I first came. This is the reason why recently they signed the free trade agreement with Australia. And there was this thing which came out of the there won't be any business of Australia. They will still Australia coming into India. That's the law. The very sensitive topic of farming. So it's yeah, I actually a little bit about farming.
It's a yeah. There's water over there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Yeah, I have more interesting friends.
So there's part connection as well, but
Yeah.
get really deep.
You remind me of your so your stream. Yeah.
Growing networks with something like this. Garden with their worms, community gardens in the city. We've been able to implement again between albeit once a land organization when we got the support because the level that I work at and the level that our community was provide that support and connecting and engaging with our city.
Therefore, the Military community is such a stakeholder in the state. Students rates,
Yeah. And it's like the slightly more unfortunate as well. There's a real security within the community as well. Some students.
There was no one online. Let me check again.
Yeah, I don't think so. Nobody will join.
Again, ourselves are easy. In fact, I know I have my email. Each line. And that's what I found. Because we got the detail. We'll see you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin.
I'm gonna leave to thank, but it's been really great. Thank you so much. Everyone.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Bye bye.
I'm well.
Cool. Well, I think Julia probably just went to the bathroom. There we go. Oh, you wanted to say?
Oh yeah, I can use that.
Okay.
So it's easy for me to read. So hi everyone, I hope you must have enjoyed your meals and please carry on and you can take more stuff. We have a lot of stuff over there. I'm really looking forward now for the breakout group activity that we are going to do. Actually, just a little bit introduction about the breakout group activity. Initially, what we were thinking is to have 4 breakout groups, but due to the participation level, I would now divide the whole team into 3 breakout groups. The first breakout group will be the university procurement group, second will be the land use and green space group, and third will be carbon neutral campus group. I'm going to leave aside sustainability advocates group that we can do later as part of our meetings and something like that. So I believe if the 2 people sitting over there can be designated as a carbon neutral campus group, and Jonathan and Remy. Yeah. You can be land use and green spaces group. And I would request Yuvashri and Anoa to represent university procurement group. What will be the theme of this breakout group activity is that you are going to discuss all the three questions. First question is related to the crisis situations, or maybe, you know, crisis situation or challenges based question. And the rest two questions are generally solution oriented and the sustainability related questions. Now we have this common theme for this thing, and that I would request all the groups to discuss or to deliberate upon that common theme. We have a my bad. So we have this common theme that goes like the agenda is 2040, a climate crisis university versus a sustainable university. And we are going to discuss, keeping in mind this title of the 25th, or the title of 2040, a climate crisis university versus a sustainable university. And I would really request you have like 20 minutes for the deliberations. And then we are going to have debriefings where every breakout group is going to discuss what have they deliberated upon, and what have they been engaging throughout those 20 minutes. And at the end, what are we going to do is we are going to have a 2040 sustainable action plan for the university, where important points will be taken into consideration from the deliberations done during those minutes. So thank you. Let's get started.
Yeah, I get our university that happens in most of the users. Yeah. Also, if there's, perhaps links to the oil or gas aspect of that, I think you can add into that. Oh, so. Yeah. Yeah, well, this historically, yeah. Yeah. Not really anyone study it. That's what I mean, is most important about the university. So yeah, we can, sort of barriers, I think, right?
I mean, more, well, in a place that has more greenery. Generally.
Barriers also, maybe transparent, although in terms of like where we get the most carbon. If there's a report over somewhere that actually calculating that and then getting that information to us. Understand.
No, we created so I'm not sure how that I guess what it is that it probably just do a couple of values for them. Like the fact that
Funness, yeah.
that the loss of the land, so first, well, how someone designed it, like for example, the car is going to actually release more pollution.
Yeah. Yeah, so funding. It's a carbon transparency. In the programs. It's that we keep these
Okay, yes, what is, yeah, I think once a month can be like significant reason.
But then I'm.
Fucking transparent. Yes.
And
Yes.
what about the issue for students? Students.
Yeah.
Like if you learn something, for instance, if you run campus or maybe.
It's local or state, it's fine, it's something like that. It's one thing, something like that.
And then you also.
You know, usually think of student population, and then probably would be a contest, but maybe there would be if it was that, you know, maybe a passive election, yeah, so.
And
Student opinion, I I'm sure it's the sometimes.
Like the way I picture it.
Yeah, I guess that's student opinion, but
We have put that tweets.
it's not really.
Or that you got like.
Yeah, yes. Well, it's no, it's only just.
So this really good. It's nice.
Although even that the campus, like the main campus, even so. That is part time compared to someone who part of at least the center of the campus, while people may drive it to
something
it's not the convenient, it's not convenient with your car.
I mean, for a campus, for a university,
They're not really,
art is,
yeah,
it's not really what we want.
I mean, like there are some, yeah, there are some parts for it.
It's a lot of cost like that.
Yeah, that might be the next question to ask.
Yeah, I'm struggling, I would like the impact of climate change on green spaces. Yeah,
Question.
Heat isolation.
Yeah, well, actually, stone, to be fair, does keep heating really well, but it's more like the windows, they could be older. Yeah. Or just even just gaps in stone. As a material, which is pretty good, but yeah. So yeah, maybe it's existing infrastructure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as well, like the forester has some, say that especially. Great, yeah.
It's a big hospital.
But I mean, but then if you look off.
I feel like actually the most part of it. Which I mean, says the fact of the green.
Yeah,
It was makes lots of noise, right? And I feel about
Maybe we should go to the next question.
more to look at, you know, kind of quite a bit.
You're saying really wants to. So it's the environment's concerned about it.
Are you on the first question? So.
Well, that's the.
Now, students and stuff, then
That's what they introduce us. It's very difficult when it's measure the impact on student.
Okay, so not energy use.
On deterioration involved, land use.
Well,
Are you still in the second question?
Well, the innovative approach the university taking, so like, I still, good time to go some lines, like, encourage staff to.
I know like this, then you can send me some. We should grow. And the places that are not.
Maybe just like.
Publicly accessible and they use.
Well, I guess it depends on how stable individual buildings they are, but.
The green spaces.
So maybe like introducing that.
Yeah. Advertising and incentives, I know, like, for students, the most cheapest. Yeah, like, at least that's like that's the general mindset. So. Contribute.
Of course, encouraging staff to use that to travel again is something that really that we need to be involving of the council to
Advertising.
to create things for
This is
bicycles, for example,
I guess start with.
more
Or
pleasant
both,
walking.
you could campaign this year, but it's the right people in the elections.
And one they made walking and cycling much more convenient, then they can work more on making driving less convenient. But then they still need to make walking and cycling much more convenient and tolerance. Than it is. So
Votes.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty good. The water in my city is, I think, my toilets and stuff. Yeah. So you don't drive on toilets are supposed to be very like, you know, when not. It's not.
Yeah. 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 It's difficult. That's probably a big barrier.
Well, very much, questions about what revenue and that's a question.
generally expanding the opportunity for students to design.
Yeah.
I certainly know that students already getting an opportunity to design the system. My PhD is using that was then they then stuff like that, for example, masters, there could be more opportunity for masters students to design solutions that are some of the more technical.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I'm not sure what they don't expect me to have any.
No, they have it.
Investing in I'd be happy to project, but also working.
But yeah, they were aiming to like encourage their to the face.
Working with students to
That could be a
help that more ownership of the rent is being and it's going to be a way to use the associated space more environment.
Yeah. Mr. England, like, that's a very, like, that's a happy how, specific for us, national.
That's also involved.
Wasted.
Or maybe like.
Or operating accommodations to the enterprises that are run by.
So we can have some kind of awareness activities for.
Instead of being operated by for profit.
They actually need to take over.
Back in the way.
That's what we have.
Yeah, I agree.
That's
I haven't people all who like run away like can
be very
like so they beans in
it will be very
very
the idea of buying a solution and using basically turning that into a democratic accommodation and then building so that's but of course, there's also different things. Is this a good idea and is it viable in our current stuff? Like with the money that is given and the way that the student union is funded and the way the universities is it viable in the movement? And if we would actually buy housing, or do we need to stay as a Scottish government to Yeah, for now, I don't think so. You can't say very like cheaper, more like, so I don't generally cost pretty good cost
Because it's right, at least like not all of the things in that university or the college secret arguments, but maybe like least that gets it. On terms of price.
because
So keeping the prices down.
yeah.
So it's like keeping, because the university is facing the highest student deficit right now. So
Although already the university does
say having utility. So
delegate to contractors. Wow.
that's right.
To actually, to operate.
So
It could also be, I think that could perhaps be the.
I'm wondering as well, maybe they do have this system, but they do
Build up if
that just gets close to the
jet. To operate into accommodation or instead of them having to find
But then, big companies.
But you know about
build it as a sustainability and if they're on this in facility. So.
yeah, that the
So the issue is it was not possible. Whereas I think Sweden, so they get like, it's the interesting.
And about like the opportunity.
Creates sustainable
So
ways of using and taking students to solve the space as it's all green space and having not you like virtual, I think it's probably something.
yes, other than like a virtual we can
That makes it fine, because well, they would take this, rather than like having a student and start flying to which location. You know, that's a lot better now than just doing. Keeping the big, what's the word? So the garden, citric garden. And these are the sea. Conventions and stuff, conventions. In academic events.
but I was in you know, I think now German capacity democratic project in student accommodation. No, that's not it.
I don't know, I mean, I think you do get it, have candidates for instead.
Yes, that's the thing.
Again.
Another good thing is that it's
State roads.
you do have this.
Maybe something to
Like, for instance,
parking.
all those vegan dishes are really vegan.
I didn't know it's secret garden saying.
Yeah, I mean, we invent as a we figurize it, to get it, get it like. Yes, it's a specific context, but it's more for students to access, to get involved. But more it's one sense, it's like to become a student, we should become a bit more part of the sentence.
Well, like feature around like this.
Oh, yeah, I mean, but like, well, yeah, it's a weekend, so it's getting on streets. And they're also have to get them. And but like, you know what I mean, like, it's quite a strategy, bringing in students with your, it's not fun incentives. Yeah. What's it mean? It means like, these things are sort of, I'm giving a motivation, which is like, we're still passionate, so I get a bit, but I'm like, so for example, like, yeah, long might try to have the price, or if you got it, might not have it, oh, okay.
Although might it be something with the food chart and chart to like for that. For the food chart, that positive reality, you know, purely for ambition and your strength.
Yeah.
To evaluate and then all those to to make it strong enough to hold the garden.
Nice.
Just 2 more minutes, guys. And then we're going to do debriefings.
Like when I was my previous university, which was a very hassle. I did this challenge, which basically like you have to like pitch an idea to the head of the higher ups and ask people about and it's like something to make it happen instead. My group we decided to do eco bricks and build. Yes, incentivize.
Things like Kate's Gardens, like the secret garden, so front and center, and
we work on whatever one person's the idea of making.
they're very proud and very happy with how the secret garden is.
Yeah, I learned about some lessons, but how it's presented.
Also bring.
Maybe not much. I just know that now it's like you've got to be very like
how many secret garden campus.
it's really, but it would really just
Green
like,
spaces that he'll head
not let yourself
bringing
carried away
in
with students and
students and all these things.
same
I'm
time.
bringing students out to
So like I for someone you can just get used to it.
what's happened with the university problem. We have this thing, we have courses, as you said, the campus is pretty, they have no university. So there's two things, they're also in reimagining the campus and all the new investment projects. And was the science teaching, they had welfare, gardening,
Yes,
but they, as they
which are the
so it's really a sweet initiative, like.
It's just all these things so
It brings up
By King Priest, as you're doing that, it's like if you don't have because they will be saying and you have green space, that's the it's not building. Yeah.
Just because, I think you mean like on King Street where you have, where the COVID testing, but let's just think about.
Yeah, like most of this company, right?
Because both the students, students, class working there are the same.
They're like, really?
Yeah, no, fair. Those are the best reasons I think it's huge. And then, yeah, you can usually fit with cities.
So, like,
Well, that's about.
I think it's just like an accessory substitution.
I think if that's many times, and that's too great. I like those. And then Edinburgh actually did a break from Edinburgh. Like it's
but yeah,
like
that
you think it's like it's festive.
yes, that could be a thing.
But like,
Or
yeah, I did go some.
like that could be something that could turn into a community garden, probably the building itself.
Really well with the environmental.
Knock down the electric, but more concrete with.
Well suitable for transition.
I mean, refurbish that.
Like, that's why I can probably never be not going to
And then they take the piece of concrete and and then they take the concrete and
Field trips, I realize now, having done now,
you're building a structural that is huge.
so.
And it's off.
No, like,
Or you. Turning that back into United States. Very much so that it provides community space. It could be a
Yeah.
Be a communication, like, and
I want a community kitchen like McCann. Like they got rid of it until they come and like only this the new one.
like that, it could be a kind of restaurant for loads of things where prices are not too high in this region.
So maybe that's
That it could be turned in. Then of course, we go around the identity garden.
Yes.
Oh, you can jump.
The issue is that we still.
I didn't put my
Water. Compared to things that there could be a sun still there. If there isn't already.
You said you can be giant.
So all right, breakout groups. So let's know what have you deliberated upon? What are your views for the University Climate Action Plan 2040, and how do you ensure that our university becomes a sustainable university in the whole UK? Let's discuss that. So I would start from the breakout group of, let's say, land use and green space group. So what are your views and what have you engaged upon?
Right, so when we talked about the land use and green spaces on the campus currently, well, there is a lot of green space on campus, and we do have a botanical garden on campus, which is very big benefits. There's a lot of car parks around campus, and the campus seems very car heavy. So we feel like we'd encourage staff and students to carpool, car share, use car clubs, and definitely promote active travel routes into the campus. There's quite good bus connections. There's plenty of cycle storage, not always very well utilised, but if we could encourage that, that would be great. We have lots of ideas that went beyond land use, but encourage students to use become stewards and use the green spaces around student accommodation. For example, at Hillhead, lots of green space around there. Could that be used to diversify and have allotments of different ideas? And I think key for the strategy would be to reinvent and revitalise the secret garden and the different community garden spaces on campus. It was great when Martin came in there and spoke how well that we have the secret garden and a community garden on campus, but and the fact that it's just one society and it's not very well known, if we brought it front and centre, that it was a space for students to get engaged with and get involved with, maybe it would bring more action.
I think what were you telling right now might be helpful for the carbon neutral campus team, because this group is actually, it might be helpful for to make university carbon neutral or 100% net zero by 2040. Let's see what Adam and Julia has discussed and what can be the way to achieve net zero at the campus.
I mean, the first thing kind of came to me at least was, well, I don't actually really know exactly how carbon neutral we are or are not at the moment. So I think the first most important thing from my perspective was understanding, the immediate transparency around that. What are the areas where carbon is either directly or indirectly emitted the most? Also coming from like data background, that's what first came to mind. So I don't know how that can be exactly measured or at least estimated, but I think that's important to have that knowledge, so that the best policies can be applied, where it matters most. So that's the first one.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So let's see what they have university procurement group for us, because they are students, and let's see what have you people changed our eating habits, or what are you making amendments in?
All right. Yeah, we discussed a lot on what are the barriers that for the university to go fully plant-based. So obviously there's the cost of it, there's the business viability, the current supplier ties, maybe long-term accessibility of sustainable products. But what about the student resistance to change and cultural associations with meat, etc. And then we talked about what should the university do to have a more sustainable procurement? So we discussed anything from sourcing local produce, grow their own ingredients on campus. I know there's actually so the Secret Garden is actually the student-run garden, but last year they created a staff-run garden, but it's quite small. It's through the Palace Gates. If you go right now,
I don't think the sunflowers are anymore there, but they grow sunflowers there as well. It's quite cool. But yeah, if they were to do that at a larger scale, they would be able to like grow some vegetables, seasonal vegetables and fruit that they could use for the catering services. And then buying certified ingredients and products, whether that's fair trade, whether that's the B certified, etc., and more plant-based. And then we were also discussing like, okay, but there's also a lot of resistance from the staff and the students to sort of eat more sustainably. So we discussed like, ideas on how do we encourage the staff and the students to buy more sustainable food. So we saw anything from sustainable cooking classes to easier access to local produce, whether that's like a sort of food bank or the zero waste shop, etc. And then having like a reward scheme for, let's say, for example, when the uni gives you a reusable bottle when you fill in a survey, or a reusable mug, etc. Giving a discount for bringing your own mug when you go buy a coffee, or even your own container when you get your meal. And then we also thought of highlighting food champions, so kind of like students that carry out good sustainable food habits, or that have an amazing idea or innovation. So the uni could highlight these students on social media. And the last one is like have a more sustainable procurement. So for example, the food court could have more diversity of food items. So for example, a 50% plant-based, no? Then a 30% vegetarian, and then 20% animal products. And also change the labeling of the food between like, so you got the animal products and the vegan veggie option, no? But right now, like what's the normal thing is to see the vegan label while everything does not have a label. But what if it was the other way around? What if the vegetarian and the vegan were the standard, and then the animal products ones are labeled as animal product? Then people will change their minds. Sorry, that was a lot.
I believe the idea of like 50% vegan and 30%, I think 30% vegetarian and 20% meat. The university procurement group will be responsible for closing our food. I'm telling you. Now I would request you, all the three groups to come together. Now we are going to make our 2040 climate action plan for our university and how can we ensure sustainable university. And I would like two major suggestions from every group so that we can have a fixed list of points for our 2040 climate action plan. That will be the major outcome of our third climate assembly. And I believe let's shape our university and our campus. So I would request all the three groups to come together and deliberate, and let's come out with the solution. Thank you.
It's not usual, whatever we can now. Sorry, so 2 points from each.
Yeah, 2 points for me. Yeah.
Okay, so like which ones will be the priority sort of, no? Or
I think the priority should be given to the carbon neutral campus,
right.
and then coming to land use, and then coming to university procurement.
Okay.
Or it need not be clubbed in the headings. We just go with the straight away points. I think there should not be headings of this group or that group. It just need to be just 6 points. Yeah,
Okay.
that's. So what is the single biggest takeaway from the carbon neutral campus group? What do you suggest for a university to become carbon neutral by 2040? Yeah, by the impressive.
Just starting from transparency, university have all of the resources we're using.
Okay.
How to just come up with an estimation, how much carbon footprint the university has and what, like, how is it achieved like that? And that would be a starting point of how we could actually manage, first, yeah.
Yeah, and also I think it's not just about understanding, it's about communication with it as well, right? So, you know, if it's gonna reach everyone, you know, that's an important thing, not just to reach like the university, like where the higher ups of the university, but also in a way communicating with social media, where it's engaging, you know, including facts and statistics and this, but in a fun way, you know, that's actually gonna keep people looking at it, not just next, you know. So I just think as well.
Engaging and awareness, we can say that.
I think that's maybe, yeah, I think that, yeah, it's awareness, yeah, it definitely is awareness. It's kind of all tied together, it's like awareness, but it's also, yeah, it's like, well, yeah, it's awareness for, yeah, it's, actually, no, yeah, it's awareness. Yeah.
So almost inviting students to active programs in like the sustainable initiatives on campus. Like in the report, for example, you know what I mean? Like say think like if you bring one container, you are helping us to reach that sort of.
See, like many, I mean, I could see why there would be some like indifference from the student community, like why do I need to do this? You know, like why are we?
And basically in the report, I feel like we should have plates that they can wash that rather than like hardware that it's just so much waste.
You know, that used to be a thing before COVID, but then because of COVID, they changed it to like just take away and then. But that's where you need to change,
I mean, it could be a case of telling them they're going to save money if they don't buy, if they don't use all the safety, because we take away stuff. It's expensive in the long run.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they probably still have those plates like collecting dust somewhere. Like, yeah.
So I would use that as a, we can frame it like this, reducing use of plastic and cardboards and every other
Just
material.
anything that's single use.
Yeah.
Single-use plastics, yeah. Eliminate single-use plastics, that's better,
Or
not reduce.
just single use.
Single-use items.
Yeah.
Because the government is saying not having it.
Yeah, no, yeah. No, the most amazing thing.
Although it's not the same, it wouldn't really be a specific point, but like more of the general thing of connecting climate action with well-being, with student well-being and creating the democratic structure, rather enhancing the democratic structures for students to be able to more directly improve the campus's environmental impact and improve their own well-being at the same time.
I think that's a good point. Like, I would love to see more like green spaces, more to socialize. Yeah, more green spaces to socialize on campus because they really improve the well-being of student community. I know the weather is not amazing in Aberdeen, but when it is, it's quite
It's
like
like
nice to be out there.
the number of benches even better on.
Exactly. There's like that's ridiculous.
I think
sustainable.
Add to that, it's like reducing the number of power plants on campus and by reducing the number of cars that are showing to campus by active carbon.
And we can also have more charging infrastructure at the campus
Yes.
for the electric vehicles.
Yeah. We were also talking, you know, like the bus system that can definitely improve.
Oh.
Can I agree on that, you know?
Yeah, maybe we need smaller buses just because these massive buses are just, they barely fit.
Yeah, right.
That's a good, suggestion. Actually, I've seen many times buses are just, there is no one in the bus and there are 2 floor buses coming to Hillhead
Yeah.
and just maybe 1 or 2 people are sitting in the bus. That's it.
But then they can also be very busy, so
The King Street.
sometimes it might need to be a case, although the problem is it would be more expensive for the companies, but that run it, but then having multiple buses running, and if they're smaller and electric, then they should, or hydrogen powered, then it shouldn't have too much of an impact on the environment, especially in even electric vehicles pollute. It's more during its operation because of the particulates from the tires. Hopefully, having the smaller vehicles will mean less particulates.
Okay.
No,
I've included sustainable infrastructure, more green spaces. Sustainable infrastructure was actually one of the points we discussed in the carbon neutral group. And actually, making this building more sustainable and
Yeah.
more energy efficient, that is most important because that is the first step. Because I think coming up till 2040, we will have more heating during summer months, and these buildings are not suitable for, they are not suitable for cooling inside the building. So I think that also needs to be taken into consideration.
Maybe actually the bus is like, at least some of the big bus routes, like going King Street, should actually go along along Regent Walk. Although it would have to be smaller buses as well. Like it would have to be single-story buses, but these buses going along Regent Walk, going under the Taylor building, and then coming out by the security office, that you can go directly into the big college without the buses having to worry about the cobblestones on the high street.
But to be fair, to be fair, that's a good suggestion, but that I think that is outside prerogative of the university. That is something which the public transportation Aberdeen City Council has to decide. I believe, but that's a good suggestion. You can have small buses which will save a lot of energy and everything. That's a good
Yeah,
suggestion.
we do have some influence. So,
Yeah.
for example, we managed to get I think not the 90s, the 20
Yeah.
route
20,
got,
yeah.
times extended onto the night as well, so that the students, like when they finish their sports or their activities on uni or lab or whatever, they can still get the bus. So there is some influence out for sure. But it is different because you have to like this with the bus.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of like the route through campus, so I would minimize the amount of buses that go through campus. I think I would just like definitely have somewhere very close to campus, like at the very entrance, or maybe like Norway Cycle Garden site, yes, and University Road. But if the bus just go stop in that corner of the college bands and then just left the campus through University Road. So there's no vehicle circulating, and just what the campus ideally would be pedestrian.
That's I'm right for it.
Yeah, and the students have to walk 2 more minutes. It's not the end of the work.
Although I'm thinking there would likely still need to be almost car-free rather than fully car-free, just because there needs to be the distribution to the local businesses and small moving vehicles for people moving house, but then of course that's something that doesn't have to. Yeah, of course, it would reduce the through traffic.
Yeah, but like first, I mean, it's a bit unrelated actually, but like with the buses, I felt unsafe like being on campus because the pedestrian area is so narrow and the buses come so close. So like more than once I could have easily been knocked out. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Because like it's also the thing that, again, the buses being too big, like they're not human scale.
Yeah.
Talking about transport, what's our thoughts on having a sustainable bike shares, like a bike rental scheme like that?
No, Jonathan, don't say that. We just got rid of ours.
No, but I mean like getting 6 councils to implement your bike strategy. I'm not good.
So I mean that's something that I've been asking for because I have like for those 3 months or so I've got a meeting with the supervisor. that's something that every like since the moment that the e-bikes disappeared, we were like, what's gonna happen? Like, are there gonna be new replacements? And they were like, oh yeah, we're seeing if there's any companies that come with a replacement. Like, can you not just like actively seek for an replacement? I'm sure I'll be gone, and there will still be like any bike sales for you to also pick up. But yeah, I agree. Like rental scheme. Like, I mean, there is in Glasgow, there is in Edinburgh. I'm sure Sterling as well.
Sterling small.
Yeah, exactly. And they got more. So yeah,
So I've got 5 points action plan. One more, I'll read those 5 points. Transparency in measuring carbon footprints and how to achieve them. Engaging in awareness towards net zero by 2040 at the campus. Third, eliminate single-use items and replace them with sustainable stuffs. Fourth, connecting climate action with students' well-being, more green space and sustainable infrastructure at campus, example, charging infrastructure, efficient public transportation. Fifth, sustainable procurement in campus and more diversity of food choices, particularly of vegan and vegetarian foods.
Yeah.
That's any other suggestion to be included, or it's fine?
I mean, I live at the idea of labeling.
Oh, amazing, amazing. Thank you for participating.
What do you call it? Like, sort of opposite.
Labeling of food items.
Reframe? Yeah.
Yeah, people ways to do it. You label everything.
Yeah.
Then is that like, I
Yeah.
don't know, like what's the best? I don't know myself.
I feel like we should have like it red. It's green is like red. It's like.
That's what they were saying. That yeah, apparently that's how they have it.
Yeah, you know, that is how in the front of the packaging you have a circular sign. Even with egg is also considered as meat, like, you know, it's a bread sign thing.
Cheese, everything else.
It's better if we label the meat products which includes any sort of meat, like was suggested by the Sustainable Procurement Group. So relabeling, was that the word which you? And I would like you to phrase this and
Reframing.
That's what it's a serious reference.
Oh, it's the same. I mean, I've already had conversations with them about this.
We could actually, I don't know if they're able to get the chair the court, but if she was able to chair the court, then that would be something that would be good to get her to approve it as a discussion to be. Like, because I think the rector can chair the court, but I'm not chairing the court because it's the first. Because she's not, yeah.
Oh.
Because she's not.
I just don't think what's the.
So like she's not used to the university structure
photograph now.
to learn, but then she's not allowed to take on her chairing right
After that.
mid-term.
So
I think
the rector, who is the student elected representative. Or
Yeah.
independent.
I
have no idea about these positions.
It's a university, the university that doesn't want to let Iona start being chair middle of her term.
Of course they don't.
They're saying she can either become chair at the start of her term or she won't be chair at all for the rest of her term.
And will there be something between the start and the middle?
There is an external chair of court, so it's not the rector, it's someone else. So, for example, the university court is composed of 2 student sabbatical officers, so that's myself and the student president, academics, professional staff. So you got anyone from you got some people working in security, some people in the grounds team, and then you've got independent members. So they are externals, from whatever company, whatever country. And then you got the chair of course. Yeah. That's how the university politics. But yeah, thank you so much, guys, for this is not on. There we go. Thank you so much, guys, for all your insights. I'm just gonna encourage you to sign up for the next climate assembly, which is on travel, transport, and tourism, and we can continue the discussion about buses and pedestrianization. And then the last one is on biodiversity and climate change. Okay, I just wanted to very quickly explain a few things on what do we do at the Students' Union. So we run to, let me rephrase that again. What do we do at the Students' Union to either provide more accessibility to food, and then also what do we do to reduce waste, and what do we do to promote more sustainable sourcing of food, right? So we do the community cafes. No, actually, I'll start with the food sharing hub. The food sharing hub is essentially, it's a food bank that's in the Students' Union building, but we don't like the association or the sort of, what's the word? Sort of the negative connotation of a food bank. So we call it food sharing hub. And what do we do? Actually, we got Julia, who's a volunteer for the food sharing hub. So basically, our volunteers collect the food that's gonna go to waste at the end of the day from the supermarkets like Tesco, like M&S, Marks and Spencer's. What else do we do? Pret a Manger. Sorry for my non-French pronunciation. Yeah, so for example, these supermarkets, obviously at the end of the day, everything that has the best before date or the expiry date on that day, they have to throw away. However, to reduce food waste, they give it to charity, and ourselves as the Students' Union, we're a registered charity, so we're able to pick up all this food and we bring it to the food sharing hub, so we distribute it amongst the student community. We also have the community cafes. So every two Thursdays, we organize a community cafe. Basically, it's essentially, again, providing free food to the student community, but without the stigma associated with a food bank. So we create a warm meal. Sometimes it's homemade. So last time we had a lentil dal, and we kind of give it for free alongside a free event. We organize some cooking classes. Usually they're vegan recipes, and they teach you how to cook sustainably, healthy, and on a budget as well, which is quite cool. The Zero Waste Shop is my favorite thing. So basically, every Monday we get a donation of food coming from CFINE, which is a charity that Martin works for. With that food, we got really cool stuff. Anything from cereal boxes to maybe bready meals or random vegetables. So we distribute that food between the food sharing hub, between the community cafe ingredients, and between the Zero Waste Shop. Basically, when we had the food sharing hub, obviously the things that are more premium and last for a long time, anyone can just come and grab everything and just stock up at home, right? So we decided to those more premium items to sell them at the Zero Waste Shop. So they're really, really cheap, but the fact that you have to pay a price impedes one person from just grabbing everything. So the Zero Waste Shop is on the ground floor of the Students' Union building. We open every Monday from 12:30 to 3:30. And we also have refillery ingredients, anything from lentils, pasta, oats, Bombay mix, dehydrated soya, etc. So you can come with your container, and there's a 50% student discount. Honestly, guys, the average expenditure is £1.50. It's so cheap. And then we also have the ethical framework. So this is the massive project that I've been working on for 2 years. Basically, it's a sort of policy guidance to shape the procurement and our suppliers at the Students' Union. So for example, let's say our coffee supplier at the Students' Union, at the Union Brew, right? Well, this ethical framework has a set of criteria that is distributed between boycott, avoid, neutral, support, and partnership. So basically, you do an assessment of the supplier that you want to engage with, and you decide whether you have to boycott or avoid, or you support, or you even establish a partnership. So that's the big project that's gonna start becoming in place. And I'm very excited about that. And then just a few announcements. On the 1st of April, there's the Aberdeen Climate Action Cafe. And this actually, very coincidentally enough, it's on the Carbonizing Scotland, Scotland's food supply. I think they still host them at the Anatomy Rooms, but they've got an online option if you want to join online. We're offering biodiversity literacy training for the first time on the 22nd of April, which I'm very excited about. And then we also have I don't have a QR code for those yet because they're not on the website, but if you could save the date for now, that'd be really good. And then on the 26th of April, we'll have another carbon literacy training. These trainings are free for students, but are not for non-students. Then finally, the 20th of September, save the date because we have Envirelution Aberdeen Festival 2025. If you scan the QR code, that will take you to all the sort of results and the photos and the graphics that we used last year, which was Aberdeen's first environmental festival that we organized with the community, and it was great. So save the date as well. And that's it. Bye, Remy. If you can provide. Oh no, actually, we're gonna take a quick photo. Or you need to go. Oh, okay. Catch the bus train. Bye, Remy. But yeah, if you can please provide some feedback about today's session, that's really helpful because we can improve for the next one and the next one. So yeah, thanks so much. I mean, I'll circulate the links afterwards as well. And if we can take a group photo now, and then you can grab some more food.
Sure.
Thank you. I think I'll just choose a nice slide. That one. No. That one. There we go.
I want this one.
Yeah, we can hold that one. We can hold these. Or just one. Wait, Celine, do we just hold this one?
No, just action.
Okay, but we can be like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
like pointing at it.
Just action.
Why is it?
Yeah, that's easy.
But Celine, we can hear like. That, no, I think that was afterwards. Because I really wanted to.
It's fine. Little bit here.
Is
No, it's a little bit here.
We can, yes, yeah.
Yeah. Did I? Oh, amazing. Yeah. Anyone with their iPhone?
Everything fine?
Yeah. Oh, Julie, I don't know if you saw like the apple pie.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Have you tried it?
No, actually, because they're not vegan.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, guys, there's lots of apple pies left over if you want to take some.
Definitely have one now, yeah.
Right. Like it, it's neuroscience, psychology.
Usually question.
Nice. So like that's like an environment thing, but like this stuff is also important.
But it's sometimes, it's interesting when you are nowhere related with you're doing spreading anything and then you come towards us. Yes, that's kind of exciting.
Yeah, that's really cool. Actually. Yeah.
That's good. Are you from UK?
No. I'm not much.
I was thinking you are Dutch, but because I met 2 or 3 people, 2 3 girls from Amsterdam and should play pick and roll. And you look a little bit like you would Dutch origin. Amazing. So I'm doing Master of Law, Energy Transition Law.
So
I was a practicing lawyer in India.
Oh.
But my LLB was also in energy law. Then I worked for like maybe 4 years
For 2 years I was at Roche Chemicals, then for 2 years I was in the solar energy company. And I already done energy law and environmental law during my LLB, so I wanted to do something related to renewables, energy transition, and when I was researching about universities, Aberdeen just that outshined other universities. And yeah, the location of Aberdeen, the energy hub and everything that was just complementing the
We got like an open
which
is really like environmental science,
yeah.
and also like a deep related with environmental conservation. So
Yeah, it is. And in fact, when I was looking at it, there was no other university which was offering me specialization in renewable energy.
really,
No other. And I only wanted to study UK how Columbia Institute they share a lot of similar laws in legislation and also follow the similar political system. So it was easy for me to study law here. So when I looked upon everybody was offering environmental law, general LLM, but I was something in
so that's a good place.
and I'm enjoying my course.
Environmental reasons, like why?
I mean, master for you.
Like working on a lot right now.
Yeah.
And Marshmallow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So like. When like
and for you, I think it's from 9 to 5, right? For working at the 9 to 5.
It's open like that. I'm just going.
Yeah. Because there was a girl living in my accommodation at Finland. We came from an exchange program from Sweden. And she used to go like at 9 and she used to come at 6.
Oh.
And it was like daily, Monday to Friday. That's why I thought it might be tiring or something.
So was she like that?
I think she was doing yes, I was for postdoc.
Oh, maybe.
Postdoc, maybe I'm not.
They're very busy. Like, because, yeah. You're actually like doing most of the work in the lab.
Yes, yeah, no, it's got better. So I was always like, I'm writing an idea for.
I hope to get in the next time.
Now I'm thinking of it. Oh, that's nice.
Back to like the
It's out
innovation.
there. That one.
You can also join us as personality.
Oh, so you haven't.
Yeah, I mean,
Every
Tell your friends as well. We haven't
about the next event.
Okay.
So you can come to those meetings and offer your suggestions and your feedback regarding how we can improve and everything. Every Friday 4 to 5
Certified up there.
p.m.
Here.
Here at Students Union Bengal. If
Okay.
you want, I can share it.
Yeah,
I can share the name of the meet or something like that.
This one I was surprised at.
Are you on what?
Yeah.
And I'll also add you to the climate assembly group.
Okay.
So that would be a great way to, you will be updated about everything.
Yeah, sure.
Dude, I spent so much time
Still
even
don't
in
have like.
every
Still
single
don't transfer where you can.
so that they.
But for EU people, it's not a problem,
And actually many of them did. But I was like, sort of.
That's good.
Someone.
I have a flat from Denmark and he also hasn't changed his number.
Yeah.
And it's for you people, it's not a
Obviously,
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the problem.
Amazing.
Oh, it's on.
Yes.
So we're gonna find.
I would need to start going or should I?
Good luck.
Sure.
Very nice to
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Nice to meet you.
Hi, sorry, we're just finishing now. We'll be out in like 10-15 minutes.
That's okay.
Sound pretty happy.
Okay, sure, thank you.
You too, folks.